Hey Brickmaniacs, it is the long-awaited product video for the LCAC, which is Brickmania's most recent, massive kit? What do we even call these things now?
Yeah, this
ridiculously gigantic.
I think it's the biggest kit we've done.
Yeah, it is an absolutely massive beast. Anyways, it's got a whole bunch of features to it, so I got Dan here, and he's going to go through some of the cooler stuff that the LCAC can do, including some of the mods and whatnot. So this will be a little bit longer video, but we're going to dive in and take a closer look at the LCAC. First things first. This is really satisfying to do.
It is a hovercraft.
So cool.
And we have to simulate the hovercraft portion.
I mean, this thing is like the size of a giant Millennium Falcon, and it also floats like this. So that is super awesome. Pretty cool to see how smooth and well that works.
Oh, that's funny. It was fun to do. It was fun to make.
Yeah, well, and the amount of different build techniques in just this one model, I mean, does it pretty much exhaust your inventory?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. I mean, this is like a mega build. So we're sitting in the Macon Island building area, and the idea that we have these LCACs is that the Macon Island, which is an amphibious assault ship, fits 3 of these LCACs. So I think the one you have right there is the prototype model.
Okay.
This is actually a production model. And we have another one in production, the next batch, batch 2, which is being worked on now. We'll get our 3rd one, so we will have 3 to go with our Macon Island. But you know, we've sold, I think we're up to almost 20 of them sold already.
Okay.
Yeah. And people are interested. We've done 2 really quick batches, and we will keep these periodically. We'll let people in on the next batch. We'll probably put some dates on the calendar.
Sure.
Hey, order your next batch now, or here's the window when it's going to be available. But they are built to order. We don't necessarily have these things sitting around. If you wanted to just on a whim buy, you know, a week's worth of project to work on, you can't do it. Sorry, you have to plan ahead. So
we have to plan ahead.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why we're doing them this way, is we can't really do a batch of 50 or even 25.
Well, 10 LCACs is the equivalent of like 100 Tiger tanks for production-wise. It's that big. It's this massive undertaking. So it comes in the biggest box we've ever put a kit in. We can show you the box too. It's
double wrap, yeah, right. The huge.
It has its own handle. It's like a suitcase.
Which makes sense.
22 pounds, massive instruction books. I think I have one of the instruction books. This is a prototype one.
How many bags too? There's because I know this one's just an optional bag, and then before that it goes to bag E. So 5 bags. And the bags are massive. Right, different, yeah, not little bags.
Each bag is like the size of an F-14 or something. So this is one of the 2 instruction books that comes with each one of these. So yeah, it's a pretty massive undertaking. I mean, it's like the usual step-by-step instructions, but we're just talking like on a massive scale because this model is so big. I mean, you can't even fit.
No, right.
It was insane to build it. My poor computer did not want to.
I bet it was tough to handle. Well, and even Drew, when he was talking about sending the files around when we were proofing the instructions and whatnot, it's like just the file size alone on the builds for these is impossible to handle. So it's quite the project.
We like to think we're on the cutting edge of technology. Then when we build something bigger, it's like, oops, we need to upgrade.
Well, and obviously, you know, like we know, we've only been upping our game. I think it all started with PT-109, you know, and then you have stuff like the Johnston, the B-17 that have been working over the past couple of years, and it all culminates in the biggest kit that Brickmania has ever released, the LCAC.
Yeah, so this goes actually back to those old days when Brickmania made castles.
Right.
So, and we would make those 10 at a time, 5 at a time even. So 5 or 10 at a time, and that's the same as what we're doing here. They're just such massive projects that, you know, the instructions alone took me a month to build, you know, just to make the instruction book. And that was me working pretty much full time on it. So there's a couple of months of development that goes into this. So it's, when we say it's like one of these is worth 10 regular kits, we're not joking.
Well, and it is kind of, I mean, obviously, you know, all of Brickmania models are of that museum quality, but it is kind of a different step when you get up to that PT-109 Johnston LCAC level, where it's like, you know, people may be like, wow, when you have a Tiger tank sitting on your desk, but man, if you got one of these in your living room or something, or you do what people do with the UCS Falcon where they like build it into a table, it's like,
well, you could actually,
incredible.
this probably would fit in that same spot. It might be a little big, but it's definitely the biggest model that Brickmania's ever done, like area-wise. I mean, it's a big thing. It holds 20, or it holds a dozen Humvees. I mean, it can hold several
real life 1 Abrams, right?
You know, M1 Abrams tanks, but that's so heavy that it would actually sink. You put more than one on. They would consider that the emergency limit already. It's already exceeding.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not a standard load, but they can do it.
So the Brickmania LCAC can fit more than one Brickmania Abrams, but the actual LCAC probably shouldn't load up with more than one.
Yeah, it's 70 tons. So our Abrams is not 1/35th in weight of an actual Abrams.
Thank you, thankful for that.
One uranium bullet in there.
So obviously comes with a crew of 5. We'll have Landon in a little bit to go over the minifigures. But let's start with some of the features on this thing, because I mean, I don't even know where to start.
I did have to limit. I should put a caveat that all the hatches and stuff open, all the compartments open. They do not have detailed interiors. Only a couple spaces have detailed interiors.
Okay.
I did put a limit. I was like, okay, this is approaching ridiculous level of parts and stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to fully detail all the interior spaces. Didn't put the turbines in. So I would consider it like 90% detailed.
Okay.
The other 10%, it's just like one of our kits. You don't have the tanks don't have the details on the inside, because you can't easily access the spaces. But they're, even knowing that, there is still a ridiculously large amount of detail, printed elements, stickers, the whole 9 yards. So where do we start?
I know it's got a ton going on. I mean, so obviously the thing that we're waiting to get to is how you remove this optional portion.
So this is a big build, and when you build it, you can decide you don't want when it's right now as you see it, it's what they call on cushion.
Right, it's ready to float.
So
it's moving off the craft.
The black thing around is just a big giant rubber like inner tube, and when you force air underneath the hovercraft, it forces it up. It comes up. They call it on cushion. So it's raised up, and when it's raised up, you can't lower the ramps. It's basically moving.
Okay.
And that's how both of these are built now. And when you're building it, you have the option of building it without this bag that builds the cushion around it. You can build it so it's down. And what I'm going to show everybody here, instead of starting out with 2 of them, I'm going to start out with a complete one and show you how to take off that extra bag, the extra pieces, put it back on off cushion, so to speak. And the reason I want to do that, because this is a really big model, and it requires some kind of delicate handling. I mean, it is sturdy. You could swoosh this thing around, no problem.
As I was doing.
Yeah. So you could handle it, but handling it a lot will weaken some of the structures, and you will notice that over time you may lose parts of your skirting off the LCAC. And I want to show people how to turn it upside down. So the best way to fix it is actually to flip it over on its back.
Oh my goodness! Well, I'm glad you're here to do that.
So I want to do that today, just show people how it's done. But I mean, just really quickly, let's go over it. We do have the 5 guys that were pointed out. They're all the same.
Mustaches included.
Yeah, even the female sailors have mustaches. Point that out. So. You guys may notice that the sort of theme stickers going on here, we actually copied the numbers that we have for these LCACs were designed to complement the make and island. So 3 of the 4 sets of numbers are for Pacific-based LCACs.
I got you.
And the 4th one is LCAC 69, which is actually based in the Atlantic. LCAC 69 is kind of a special one. It's the infamous aluminum Falcon. So we did that. We did not get approval. Nobody gave us permission to do that. We just threw those extra stickers.
Because it's awesome.
Yeah.
The aluminum Falcon.
So this one here is decked out as the aluminum Falcon. So you have 4 different numbers that you could possibly choose from. If you live on the East Coast, you're going to want 69 because it's your East Coast based unit. The other 3 are all West Coast, so we wanted to put them in the Macon Island, which would be appropriate. You do have a lot of printed elements. You have all these intake elements. These are printed. The gentlemen or gentlewomen of the Navy are holding the control panel, another printed element. That's kind of the extent of the printed elements. You have the figures, the air intakes, like there's a dozen of those. Everything else is stickered.
Okay.
Mostly because it's crossing seams. We wanted to give people the freedom to change up the numbers.
It looks like there's another printed element up on the front here too.
Oh, that's a sticker.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, there's a placard on the front of every single one. The only one that we decorated was this one because they're not uniform. I'm not even sure what that's for. I'm sure somebody can tell us with that placard, or that maybe it's a box. It's,
drop it in the comments. Let us know.
There's probably like a circuit breaker board or something.
Sure.
it's the back of their air conditioner. Who knows? So there are some moving parts of this. You can spin the propeller blades. So when the real thing is on cushion, one of these turbines is basically, or one bank of turbines is basically in charge of lifting it up. The other bank is in charge of propulsion. So forward propulsion is provided by these big turbines in the back, and you also have these jets that they can maneuver the hovercraft. They can basically turn this thing around in circles.
So that's the steering mechanism actually, is those vents on top.
They can aid in steering, aiming the front of it. They
Sure.
also have rudders in the back.
Okay, very
So
cool.
you have this giant fans, but if you ever see it leaving a ship, these things aren't even spinning. They don't even engage these unless they're out in the open ocean, because that's just like, it's like jumping into hyperspace or something.
Sure, you go fast. Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
it's basically a forward propulsion. Typically, they'll back out. They'll be nose into a ship.
Something like the Macon Island?
Yeah,
Okay.
in a well deck, and they'll back out and then take off. One thing that this does, it has a telescoping mast, so when this thing's in a ship, it's
down.
It doesn't get knocked off. Something
Okay.
like that. So it is designed, and our Macon Island will fit this. We've already measured. It'll just fit, but that's the way in real life they just fit.
That's the beauty of unified scales, right? 1/35th scale, 1/35th scale. There you go.
We do not supply with any vehicles with your Macon Island.
But we have them available.
Yes, you can put up to a dozen Humvees, as mentioned before, Strikers, all kinds of anything that the Marines would be using. So this is it's a Navy vessel, typically transporting Marine Corps units from ship to shore. The next generation is also actually called the ship to shore connector, not the LCAC. So this is the current. There's a next level one actually in design and development right now that I think they're actually just starting to deliver to the Navy.
Okay, but this is the one the Navy is still currently using.
Yeah, so they call that the LCAC 100 series, the next generation.
Fair enough.
This is definitely in use and you'll be seeing these for like another 10, 20 years in the future.
Okay.
So that's while they have a new one coming out, these will still be in use.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. There seems to be a lot right with the LCAC.
So you can take the bridge roof off. It does have seats for your entire crew in here. Actually, you put 4 of the guys.
And that's where the control panel is.
Yeah, that's where your controls go. So your guys will sit up in there. If anybody's paying attention, I think it's the Pavlo control panel. So I just recycled it. You do have a guy goes into this. They call this the bubble. So one of your load masters will ride in here. It's just another observation point.
But that's pretty much your whole crew then right there, right? Because 4 in there, 1 in there.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's exactly the way it would be. There's actually 3 in a row on the real thing across here, but we can't fit unless we rip the guy's arms off. It ain't gonna happen. So you have a guy in the bubble. I've heard that. See, they are armed with these M240 machine guns. You never see them mounted on them because the salt water is so corrosive that they keep the guns.
Destroy the guns. Yeah, that makes sense.
So only in emergency use they'll have these. I've heard of them actually mounting one up here on the bubble. When the guy opens the canopy, it can reach out and shoot. But I don't think that's normal. I think that's.
I would assume that these aren't exactly dropping too typically in places that are that hot. It's kind of more so just to transfer things.
Well, that's why you would
land.
have your complement of aircraft.
Sure.
So you have a total envelopment. You basically it's a total assault on the beach. So you'd have your air elements coming in, dropping off security troops, your Ospreys, any helicopters that they might have, and then you would have gunships circling overhead. These could come in under hostile fire. It's this dark gray area I found out is actually those are armor panels.
Oh wow! Okay, so they are expecting heat.
It's an aluminum skin, but they do have these armor panels that they can bolt on over like vital parts, typically the crew compartments, parts of the turbine system. So it does have some armor, but it's mostly just like aircraft aluminum or ship aluminum in this case. It's aluminum alloy.
Fascinating.
You will notice that there's an abundance of windshield wipers, and that is true for the whole thing. Because when this thing is on hover, it has a potential of whipping up a lot of spray because you have a lot of air being forced. These are basically 4 giant aircraft turbines forcing this thing up in the air, and any little tilting, wave action, you're going to get spray
all
everywhere.
over the place.
So the windshield wipers usually furiously wiping away the windshield while these things are going. And I've seen this personally. We've been out to the West Coast for events and stuff, and you can see these things out in the ocean, and they are just sometimes kicking up a ridiculous amount of spray. Like it's like a mobile cloud.
Ski. Yeah, okay.
It's like its own fog bank moving around in the ocean. It's pretty neat.
That's amazing.
So So that's pretty much the model. It does have 2 ramps, and right now I can't lower the ramps. Should point out that these hatches do open. You do have access. So,
God, that's cool.
When I learned a lot about these things.
I bet.
When this thing is in motion, you can't be riding in the vehicles. You're not allowed unless it's a hard skin vehicle, like an armored. You could be in a tank, but if it's like a soft top or a soft skin vehicle, you cannot ride in them because the spray, the air blast generated by these things can potentially launch items.
Oh man, because you get lifted right up off there.
Well, you personally or any object could be thrown around, so it's not safe to be outside on the deck while this thing is in motion. So they have these crew compartments. This is they call it the doghouse, where the Marines ride as passengers. So if there's a bunch of vehicles on here, they'll typically ride inside the doghouse, and there's passenger space on the other side as well. So this one's specifically for passengers. There is not a restroom on here, so yeah. Typically, I guess the trip from ship to ocean or ship to shore is under 30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like you're going to be on here for hours,
right?
Unless you have a breakdown or something.
Yeah, that seemed to.
Yeah, just hang your butt over the side.
Find a spot.
Yeah, who's in the ocean? Who's going to care? So these are not jails. To point out, I did put a jail door that opens on a couple of these sections, just for the fun of it, but they are not intended to be jails. It is where the air gets sucked into the turbines. So
okay, so they're like vents almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're nets, they're heavy duty nets, and it's designed, they're heavy duty so people do not get sucked into the turbines.
Sure.
And there's also a net over this area, so equipment and stuff and people don't get sucked into those
fans. Yeah.
Because it's a giant propeller. It's like 2 aircraft propellers, So
not only expensive but dangerous.
Yeah, it's very similar to having like 2 props from like a C-130 right there at deck level. So
that gives you some idea of the scale then. I mean, obviously this thing is built to 1/35 scale, but like
it's the propellers are pretty much the same size as the C-130 propellers, maybe a little shorter. So well, let's just dive into this.
Yeah, if you want to jump into the build techniques, I feel like we've seen most of the details on the top.
Take these Humvees out of here. One thing, I mean, when you are building it, you have you're pushing down on the top. And when you push down on the top, you do have a tendency to kind of warp the whole deck. And when the first one came off the assembly line and was built, I noticed it was a little wonky. So I was like, well, I want to make sure that we can do surgery to this thing after it's built, because we may have to do some tweaking. Yeah, we want to make sure that as you're building on top, things don't fall off the bottom, because you do have to build it from the bottom up, and you are putting downward pressure on the surface that's only supported by a few wheels. So it does have a tendency to parts you can push down. I mean, the deck is solid. There's nothing, you can't push anything through that deck.
So if you're choosing to build this bag, is this where you start?
You start at the deck, actually, and then you flip the whole unit over and build the whole bottom part. And then once the bottom is built, you flip it back over and put all the surface stuff, because you can't flip it over. I'll show you how you can. That's the first thing people are going to ask. Well, how can I fix the bottom? Because you're going to crunch everything on the top. So I did lower that mast for a reason. These turbines are only connected by a few studs, so I'm going to pull off the turbines, because these are the things that tend to fall off if you flip the thing over, and that's a mess to clean up.
Okay.
So they're heavy. That turbine is a pretty complex build.
So step 1, remove the turbines.
Yeah, you can remove the whole unit, or you can just remove the spinny part, which sometimes is easier. Let's see if I can disconnect it. There, take that off. Put these on so I don't lose them.
So just to reiterate one more time, Dan is going over some of the build techniques that you will need to either do repairs and or to build your LCAC as well. Obviously this is a very involved kit, and it's quite the price commitment, and so we wanted to make sure that we had the master builder behind the build in here to show us exactly how to fix all the quirks.
Yeah, this is more like, as you move it around, if you're gonna especially if you're gonna take this, the whole idea is we built these for ourselves to take on display, and there's inevitably in travel you have potholes, accidents. We've had
bumpy cars.
We've had an entire rack of our displays roll off a loading dock once. So that was a 4-foot drop. And we've had to rebuild things. So it's not unheard of. And I want to make sure that everything we do is transportable and rebuildable.
Right.
So this deck, basically, when you pick it up, if you grab it from the deck, you would think that, don't grab it from the top, but that's actually the safest place to do it, because that deck this surface area actually goes from edge to edge, and the whole thing is built on it and built under it.
Okay.
So it's kind of sandwiched together. So it is very solid. But what I want to do is flip it over. And
So that's your lift point.
this bin here is actually for a reason. So when you flip it over, you want to get a container that'll fit. I think this is like a 16 quart, I don't know, it's a Sterilite. You get these at Target. I'm sure Walmart has them and any other like home goods place, but this bin happens to fit perfectly in here. This is a standard bin that we use, so I'm actually going to flip the whole thing over. So as you're seeing it, you'll see the bottom here. And it's designed to be handled like this. So what I want to do is take these extra skirts off so we can show the whole thing deployed the other way.
You know, I'd say don't try this at home, but that's kind of the purpose of the video.
Yeah, I want everybody to feel comfortable with the fact that this thing is it's pretty solid. You could, you know, I'm thinking like if I don't have a Roomba, but if I did, I'd probably want to stick that thing under there and see if I get the thing to cruise around. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Please, if some of you do that, if you're an LCAC owner and you put a Roomba underneath it, send it to us. We must see that video.
Because it is a hollow box under here. That's about 15 inches wide. So, so the whole thing is built in sections. So if you're building one, if you're one of the lucky few who have already got their LCACs, you're probably into this portion of the build right now. But you're building. First you build the top part of the skirt, then you build the lower parts, and they're only just held on by friction. So we want to take all these sections off. It's just going to take me a minute. This is the part that you fast forward through.
Okay, so there you have it. We got the bottom air cushion off of the LCAC, and it is now ready for upside down deployment.
Right. This is not a good view of the LCAC. Let me clear a space to put this thing back down. I have to put it back together. Let's do that. Give me some landing space here. Be careful to grab it by the deck.
Yep, the separation between the cushion and the deck.
Yep, so the deck is where you want to hold it. You can hold, I mean, look at that. It's pretty sturdy. So now this is as if it was off cushion. This is how it would look, and then you could deploy the ramps. So if you're doing a diorama and you wanted to have one, if you wanted to buy a couple of these like us.
Dan won't mind if you pick up a couple of LCACs, is what he's saying.
So, but then, you know, your vehicles will just roll off the ramp. Yeah, it's cool. I haven't seen one of these off cushion since the prototype stage. This is the first time.
Yeah, that is amazing looking.
Oh, throwing the sailors on the ground. So, yeah, but you know, when I've seen the Abrams loading in one end and coming out the other, but you can also, I've seen them come out the back.
Sure.
Come out. Did a lot of research, an unusually large amount of research, because this is a, you know, we do these kits under license. We want to make sure that we're doing not only the manufacturer justice, but doing the users justice too.
Well, and Brickmania has always like staked its name on historical accuracy and know what we're talking about. So we do our best, that's for sure.
Sometimes better than others.
Yeah, you know.
So
we're still human.
Yeah, you want to put these turbines back on. You know, that Lego dark orange is just perfect. It worked out just that's the actual color. It's like a fiberglass.
The shape, the way all the pieces work together to make that circle to be that size. I mean, it's like it was made for it.
I got lucky.
Yeah, well, still, it definitely works.
Yeah, it was my skill, but I will admit that it was pure luck.
Every once in a while, even master builders catch a break.
Yep. And there you go. You have it off cushion. So if we were like doing a diorama and we wanted to have them loading in, loading out, this is the way they'd be, even in the back of the Macon Island when they're not, you know, when they're in the ship. The ship is basically, the well deck of the ship is basically like a slot in the ship that just big enough for these things to go into.
Sure.
And it actually has a bottom. So it's not just like on the open ocean. It's actually goes into the ship, and it can drive up onto the platform inside the ship, and then just whoop, off cushion. They close the well deck, the back door of the well deck, which is similar to one of these. They just close up, and then they can flush all the water out of it. And
So do the doors on the front of like the Macon, do they open like this, or it would drop down like?
It's in the back.
Okay. It's in the back.
It's in the back. The whole back. So the bow of the Macon Island's a point.
Right.
The back is actually it's like a box. So 3 of these things can drive in. So they're like on the lower deck. Doors will open. So it's a split.
Right.
So you have like the ramp goes down and the
top comes
yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes you'll see that the bottom ramp is up and this one's still open. So they can get air and
sure. Breathe.
Yeah, it's not just the Macon Island. The Macon Island's pretty extreme. This is an amphibious assault ship. This is like the size of a World War II aircraft carrier. And it can hold 3 of these, but there are other classes of amphibious ships, amphibious warfare ships that will hold 1 or 2 of these as well. So it's not just going to be the Macon Island, but if we were to make the whole like MEU-11, it would be a variety of ships. I think it would be 3 different ships holding them. And they have these crazy like mega ships, like a dock ship, that you can have one giant ship full, like a roll-on, roll-off cargo ship full of armored vehicles, whatever, and a dock ship next to it that they would drive from one ship to another right onto the LCACs would just actually come into the side of the ship.
Holy smokes.
So they basically could have a fort, a floating fortress, a logistical fortress. Yeah, that you don't need dry land, so they can be using these things to go from huge cargo ships out in the ocean to the shore, just basically ferrying vehicles back and forth. And I was reading that, and saw in videos that these things you could basically empty one of those cargo ships in just a few hours. These things just going because they're fast. It's a hovercraft.
So just fast you can load it.
Yeah. So you can put a dozen Humvees on here. They said something like 78 Humvees in like 3 hours from a ship to.
Wow. So the uses of the LCAC are many and versatile.
I mean, moving tanks with them, I guess they're not really designed for that, but they can do it. But if you want to have your complete combined arms, you can do it. You have your air wing with Ospreys or helicopters delivering troops from the air, and then these delivering the equipment from the ground.
Can you just imagine what that would look like, a full assault? I mean, obviously, there hasn't been something like that for us to point to, but like, man, that would be an incredible. See how far we've come since June 6, 1944.
Yeah, well, they've come a long way. So, I mean, it's the same concept. This is the LCAC, landing craft air cushion, replaces the LCT, which is a landing craft tank, which holds about 5 Sherman tanks. So if you saw our D-Day diorama, you would have seen the LCTs, right. 2 of them in the diorama. Very similar in size. Obviously, they don't float on air like
this. No hovering yet.
So this is sort of the extreme end of that whole hovercraft technology, and then the next level will be the LCAC 100 series, which is the next level. That's ship-to-shore connector. I think that's what they're calling it. So maybe in a few years, 5 years, we'll be putting a kit of that out.
One of those. Oh man.
So this is basically a special order item. You can only get it when we have those order windows open. But we will do this for many years in the future. I'm planning on having the LCAC available on and off, a special order for the next 2 or 3 years. So,
that sounds awesome.
as long as people are interested in them, we'll keep making them. It's just going to have to be in a window. We're not going to make one. We'll have to.
Right. Well, and for those of you that don't know, that's so that we can fit it into our production, because obviously we're planning that out in the future. We only have limited production like we've talked about in the past, and so when we put something like this out for pre-order, depending on how many of them get ordered, it can take up a sizable chunk of what we're able to produce. And then there's already enough people complaining about how there's not enough stuff online, not enough what it's like, we got to make room for all these things. There's never enough time, never enough Lego.
So and a project this big, it just doesn't happen. Right. It's really a coordinated effort of all the people that work at Brickmania. And once we're allowed to actually do public displays again, it'll be part of a bigger display. So we'll have the LHD 8, which we're building here. All these, we'll be able to make a room size amphibious assault operation going on. We have all the aircraft. Now we have the missing piece was the LCAC. We were going to do it just for ourselves, but when we got the opportunity to do it under license and sell them, why not?
Dan was crazy enough to try to make instructions for this thing. It's basically where it came to becoming a kit. You wanted to transition it to people who, and I think it still is it's definitely impossible level, right? It's our top level of difficulty, to say the least.
Expert level.
Yes, so it is definitely quite.
And I didn't even go to town as much as I could have. We could have taken it to like the 6 star, but I was like, let's keep it within reason. It's still just a toy. Let's not make another $1,000 worth of add-ons. I mean, you can do that all you want by buying more vehicles. And,
reasonable insanity. If that's not a way to describe Brickmania.
Right. And kind of the cool thing about all these, the vehicles that we've put out lately, they're all replicable. So if you buy one Humvee, like this one right here, that's the latest Humvee.
Yep.
All those parts are actually available either from Lego or like the brick arms, or from the brick arms are available from us. One thing I should point out, that we've had a lot of people wondering about why this turret doesn't move. It was intentionally locked into place because they don't use this turret when they have the
crows.
The crows, which is the crew. It's basically operated by the guy inside. There's actually a piece in here, an optional piece put in here to prevent
it from turning.
Right. Take this 1x2 plate out. Put your turret back in. Let's see if I can get it in. It wants to turn and not be cooperative. Funny.
Funny, because now it turns just like.
And there you go.
Now it turns.
Oops, I put it in backwards. Oopsie. But it does turn. It's designed so that you can make it turn.
Awesome. And what would be cooler than having an LCAC loaded up by 12 officially licensed Humvees?
It's the black piece. The black one comes out. I took the wrong one out. Tan one stays in there.
Tan stays, black goes.
It's the black one that keeps it from turning. There you go. So it does turn. And you get this fabulous 1x2 left over. We should have made like a box of rations or something you take out, so you have an incentive to take it out. But yeah, it does do that. Just wanted to point that out because some people were having a very difficult time understanding why it didn't turn.
2-brick mod, yeah. Well, now we know. That's how you get it to turn from the solidness. Okay, is there anything else you want to cover on the LCAC itself?
Well, I don't know. That was quite a kit.
Yeah, I know. It's quite the undergoing. And believe it or not, we still have one more part to get to. Now we're going to kick it over to Landon real quick and take a little bit closer look at the LCAC crew.
All right, here is the crew for the LCAC. We got a bunch of same guys just to keep this thing streamlined, to really deck out the entire craft here. So we have them in flight. They're kind of like flight uniforms or deck uniforms. A lot of wind going on, so it's just a one-piece outfit here. And
spray, I suppose. A lot of wind and ocean spray. Those uniforms probably take a beating.
Yes. So we just have some simulated fabric texture all around the guy. And it's they're out in the ocean. It's probably pretty sunny, so they're all decked out with sunglasses. And Dan wanted to go with the cool mustache face for all the guys, so it's just an interesting detail there. So again, straightforward crew. Yeah, that's the crew.
Very, very awesome. All right, so there you have it, Brickmaniacs. That is the complete breakdown of the LCAC with some cool building instructions included. So remember to be on the lookout for some of those pre-orders as they are available in the future. Otherwise, if you're one of the lucky few to have gotten in on the first 2 batches, enjoy and post some pictures.